Hello guys, welcome to the Boxing Locker. I am Matt Goddard, former professional boxer, now boxing coach, and this morning I'm recording a very quick, immediate sort of reaction to last night's unified heavyweight clash, the rematch between Alexander Usyk and Anthony Joshua, the second fight. The first ended with Usyk winning on points, and last night's fight was exactly the same. We'll go into the details of what happened. I think it's important that you know my score before we start. The scoring by one of the judges, I can't remember the guy's name, was absolutely diabolical. 115, 113 to Anthony Joshua. Embarrassing, bought and paid for, completely and utterly wrong. Now, I gave it 118, 110. That is 10 rounds to 2. I gave Anthony Joshua the third round and the 9th round. I'll explain why shortly. I gave Usyk every other round. A couple of those rounds were edged very narrowly early on in the fight. But again, I'll talk about that now. So to break down the fight, the first couple of rounds, very cagey affair. Usyk came out with the same usual style, using that lead hand to occupy the space between him and AJ, picking off little jabs and trying to suggest that he would throw that right hook over the top. AJ actually, for me, had a very nice beginning. He looked firm, he got low with his stance, nice wide and low. He had high hands and he was just shooting straight down the middle and then picking little shots to the body and keeping Usyk alert and aware and making sure he had to stay defensively responsible. He landed a few jabs. I believe on the CompuBox stats, he actually outlanded Usyk in the first 2 rounds. I don't personally think that gives you a clear picture of what happened in the round. I think actually Usyk was in control of the pace, in control of the fight itself, and the fight was going as he chose. I think people misunderstand moving forward for being in control. Usyk's movement was fluid, smooth, and as I said, his lead hand was controlling the space. The third round changed things slightly. I think AJ had success to the body and started to land 2 or 3 different shots at a time. I think he slightly wobbled Usyk with one shot. Again, people go a bit overboard with all that stuff. There was a little impact, and Usyk looked like he had to think about it for a second. At no point was he shook or out on his legs. And I think AJ actually boxed very nicely to that game plan within those 3 rounds. Unfortunately, I think after that third round, the game plan started to crumble. I think Usyk knew, and always knows actually, he reads fights very well and seems to know the pattern of fights incredibly well. He's got an amazing boxing brain. I think Usyk actually ramped up the volume of punches he was throwing in his counters and started dropping his left hand low to the body and over to the head. So where Usyk's incredibly smooth is that his lateral movement alongside his little head movements and slips enables him to pop out that rear hand as a split shot to the head or to the body, but also to set up that big long sweeping hook over the top and then jab through the center when he goes on the inside. So this is something that I specifically wanted to talk about because you'll see this throughout the fight. One of Usyk's most successful punches, and something that you are convinced by people all the time that you shouldn't be doing, is the jab inside the jab. Okay, so Usyk was stepping with his lead foot slightly forward and slightly inwards and driving his straight right jab down the middle of the line with a head slip slightly to his left, just as Joshua threw his own jab. Now, usually as a coach, usually as an analyst, usually as anyone in the boxing world, you would say, get your foot outside of their lead foot and then find the shots from there. Now, Usyk coming inside is a very intelligent move because from there, he also, and what we saw later on in the fight, was he's also able to pivot off as that straight right hand came. Now, that segues me nicely into something that I think was a flaw in Anthony Joshua's game plan. I'll keep going through the rounds, don't worry. I just have to flow off into this because I'll lose my track of thought otherwise. So segues me nicely into this. Straight punches. AJ started off the fight lovely with straight punches. There wasn't enough variation to the backhand, so he's throwing his shots, everything nice and long, everything dead straight, piercing, beautiful punches that landed, by the way. But off of that jab, if he'd suddenly whipped in a right hook, whipped in a right uppercut, dropped down to the body and got back to the jab off of that, immediately Usyk has more to think about. Because AJ stuck to throwing that right hand primarily straight throughout the fight, it meant that Usyk's head movement had more effect. If you watch, Usyk's doing a lot of slipping as he's moving. He's bouncing, boom, 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 loading up the shoulders as he goes so that he can pop out them shots. Very, very intelligent strategy, very well executed. But I think, personally, Anthony Joshua made it easy for him after that third round, and he let him get away with that when he didn't necessarily need to, because even as the bigger, stronger man, if you want him to box as the bigger, stronger man, you need to be varying up your punches, varying up the angles that you're coming at, so that the opponent can't read what you're doing and doesn't have an easy thought process, okay? You need to be challenging people's brains. If their brains are scrambled and they don't know what you're going to do, then all of a sudden, then you're going to fall apart, and they're going to fall apart, and you're going to start landing shots. Much the same way Usyk did, much the same way Lomachenko did, much the same way that whole style is built around, in fact. Now, progressing through the fights, I think through the mid rounds, I thought Usyk would start pulling away, and actually in my prediction video, I predicted a stoppage in the mid to late rounds, 7, 8 or 9. Actually, that didn't manifest. Joshua showed good grit, and he got hit with some reasonable shots and didn't sort of panic. I think Usyk's lateral movement actually improved. He started changing pace with his movement, so he started stepping and then getting back to the bounce. And so AJ couldn't really get a read on what he was doing. He started using little pivots, and anytime AJ got close, he spun out real quick. Notice that, okay? He tried to get out real quick, pivoted off the ropes, turned or grabbed and turned, and did what he needed to do to make sure AJ couldn't pin him to the ropes. That all changed in the 9th round, another round that I gave to AJ, when AJ threw 3 or 4 times in the round, punches in bunches, clusters. Now, a man of Anthony Joshua's size throws incredible combinations at speed. I think his fluidity when he's relaxed is beautiful. The problem is he doesn't do it enough, okay? He had one good round, and I think having hurt Usyk, I think he tried too hard to finish him rather than just sticking to that game plan. If he'd done that, flurries, back to the jab, flurry, back to the jab, nice and steady, not trying to absolutely hammer him and dominate him with those punches, just let them happen, kept picking them, and continued to do that over the progressive rounds, he may have had more success. However, the fight changed utterly and entirely in the 10th round when Alexander Usyk came out and was devastating. He threw punches in even bigger bunches. He threw punches, as Anthony Joshua should have, at tons of different angles, chopping over, lifting under, body, head, head. It was just wonderful work to see. Smoothness, hand speed, punch variety, his ability to think and move at the same time. And Anthony Joshua came out of that 10th round, looked absolutely gassed. And I think the left hands that Usyk kept landing to the body started to have an effect on AJ after he himself put a lot of energy into what he was doing. That's when he started noticing them. And then I think from there on in, it was Usyk's fight. Joshua didn't have a great deal of success. He tried to bully and work to the body, but not enough. So, absolutely brilliant fight. I thought it was quite exciting. Usually I'm not that into heavyweight boxing, but I really enjoyed watching this one. And it was good to see Usyk do what he did. Flaws in the game. I think Usyk will struggle against a bigger man who is less concerned with his style, which is what I think Fury will be. Fury will engage his physical superiority. By that I mean his size advantage, his reach advantage, and the fact that he can be a bear and maul him and lean on him. And I think that will be a real advantage to Fury, and I think that will present problems for Usyk in the long run in the fight. I will do a prediction video for that at some point because I do believe it's going to happen. I think Fury actually announced today that he's not retired. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he did announce that he'll come back for the Usyk fight. I think he'll be looking at Usyk as a small man with a good skill set, but not a huge amount of power at heavyweight, and that suits him well. Although we saw Steve Cunningham, who was a blown up cruiserweight at the time, drop Fury, so there's always the risk. Anyway, for Usyk, I think that will be the next fight. Now, Joshua, the mistakes he made. What could he have done better? Frequency of jab. He's got a beautiful jab, lovely, straight and stiff. Not enough jabs, not enough variation to that jab. Jabbing high, jabbing low. Early on in the fight, the first couple of rounds, he promised to use that jab a bit more. He showed promise of using that jab a bit more, and actually landed quite frequently. Not necessarily hard, but it was hitting gloves, and that's important. You've got to give the opponent something to think about. You've got to make sure they can't just run away with the game plan and do whatever they want, which is what happened in those mid and late rounds for Usyk. What else did Joshua do wrong? Not enough punches in bunches. When he got in close and threw them flurries to the body, they had a great effect. The problem was his muscle mass, I believe, takes too much energy out of him and makes those kind of flurries unsustainable. I think it makes it too hard for him to maintain that stamina for more than a round, and he gasses out. The other thing is tension. He tries so hard when he gets somebody hurt. He gets so excited. If he doesn't get them out of there, the whole thing falls apart. And actually, that's what we saw in the 10th round, 11th round, 12th round. AJ never really recovered. He doesn't use his physicality enough. He's a big, strong, muscular guy. He doesn't use that at all. He doesn't dominate in close. He doesn't shut down the distance. I think his lack of confidence with his own chin and lack of confidence with his own punch resistance means that he's afraid of just walking a guy down. The couple of times that he had success, he was walking him down. He was defending shots and then just coming through, throwing his own punches in bunches. The biggest flaw in what AJ did from my perspective was not shutting down the ring. I mean, I don't understand what these guys are working on in the gym. I don't understand what these coaches are showing these guys. If you have a fighter who knows how to move laterally, you spend your 12, 14, 16, 18 week camp working on how to shut the ring off. Presumably, that's the most important factor. If you take away Usyk's footwork, you force him to use head movement and hand defense to block the punches, defend the punches and not get hit. That means you punch with greater volume and greater variety. He's going to find it almost impossible to make them all miss. Lateral movements, cutting off the ring, forcing him into corners. Then you can use your physicality, lean on him, guard high, press into the body and head, whipping up loads of different angles. The more, the better, and you would have greater success. I understand that all things are easier said than done. Okay, Usyk is an exceptional boxer and has proven in the past that he can deal with almost any style. What that doesn't mean is that you shouldn't try, okay? From my perspective, Anthony Joshua isn't capable of adapting in the fight, and that's what costs him. I think that's what cost him in the Ruiz fight the first time. I think that's what cost him in the Usyk fight the first time. I think that is the same issue he had in the first half of the Klitschko fight. His adaptability just doesn't exist. He's very singular of style, and unfortunately, I think that costs him. I'm a big fan of the way he carried himself prior to the fight and through the fight. I'm not going to discuss what happened after the fight. I think it was sad to see, and somebody should have been there to help him out with that. But a very, very humble guy generally, and he was in the stadium afterwards signing gloves. I don't think it's the end of him. I would love to see him box more. Eddie Hearn said something nice on his Instagram. He said it'll be nice for AJ to box without the pressure, take on a few voluntary fights, choose a few opponents and learn a bit more. You've got to remember this guy has been pushing himself since the very beginning of his career, and it's been good to see. He's been taking hard fights, with the exception of Wilder and Fury. I don't think there was anyone really you could ask Joshua to fight that he hasn't. And it's been a great career so far, and I really, really hope, really think that it shouldn't be the end of it. So there we go. Wilder's just announced that he is back against Robert Helenius. I might do a little prediction video for that. That would be a great fight should Wilder come through the Helenius fight. I'd like to see Wilder, AJ, because that's still a big money fight, very exciting, and I think AJ has a great night there. So there we have it, guys. What a fight. Glad to see heavyweight boxing back to being exciting again, with good fights being made. More of those the better. Thank you for tuning in. I blathered on a little bit too long there, but all good. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Don't forget to check out the rest of my content, like and subscribe. Cheers.